Hey everyone, thanks for tuning back into our channel, and we're still on deer here. We're starting to get pictures of some of our bigger bucks, and today I'm looking at a buck. If you've been watching the series since last year, we have a buck we call Crown Royal, and we left him last year because he broke himself up. For what the growth he's got right now, he's going to be bigger than he was last year, and he's 6 years old, so he's definitely one we're going to want to have on our hit list. And it's a little bit different strategy on him because he breaks so early, so we want to make sure we try to get a setup where we can get a shot at him within the first 10 days before he starts breaking up. So let's get to Crown Royal. Standing right in the field where I'm assuming we'll kill Crown Royal in. But I'm thinking it's totally different this year, not just on this deer, but on a lot of other ones too. All right, well, step number one that I was really worried about is a passing grade right here. We had, a couple of weeks we missed a couple of rains and it was getting really dry. So you're like, oh man, we don't want to run into a last year problem because it's been so wet. Our corn was looking beautiful for once this year. And then we had just a super bad hailstorm yesterday, dented up our trucks and everything else. But looking at some cornfields that are just totally destroyed around us, these are some of my most important ones, especially like this one for Crown Royal. And you can see the leaves are all torn up. But the important part is the center part where the growth plate is in there, where it's kind of a swirly in there. Everything comes out of this. As long as this isn't damaged, it's going to keep growing. And these leaves, that's fine on the edges. And I look at this, it looks like nothing hit it hard enough to damage the stalk itself. Maybe put some holes through leaves and stuff in here. But I'm telling you, we were just driving over here and I was just like, oh no, my heart just sank because there's a couple big fields that are literally less than a mile away that are basically destroyed, that are probably gonna have to be replanted. And this is a lot farther along. You see, like I planted my corn, try to get early on these deer and went earlier, pushed that envelope even into chance of frosting and everything else, because I was assuming it was gonna be another dry year like last year. I guess you always have to assume there's gonna be a drought. So after last year when I actually had cornfields for the first time in 20 years fail, like they just came up and it got so dry, they stopped growing, deer wiped them out. I mean, I had a lot of those fields I just had to put into the Analogics Perfect 10 late season. I just had to disc corn up. But this is, we're talking end of, late June, and it's already, chest high. So I planted this early and we had plenty of rain this year so far. And then we just had 2 inches last night, but of course with it came the hail, and I'm just, thank God that it didn't trash this. So step one for Crown Royal, this is a big win for me right here. You never really think of hail damage in the summer. I've never had it in 20 years that I've been here, but there's always that possibility. So this is standing right in the field where I'm assuming that we'll kill Crown Royal in. All right, so this on Crown Royal, we're thinking it a little bit backward. I would never normally had done this like in the past. This is where I would a lot of times have my feeders, where I would take inventory, because this is the field that I want deer to be coming to and get used to coming here. But I'm thinking it totally different now this year, not just on this deer, but on a lot of other ones too, because I started seeing now with the wet spring, I didn't get my feeders rolling as early as I normally do, just because there was so much browse and I was just so busy planting and trying to get stuff in. When it was wet, you couldn't get skid steers in to move feeders even. You couldn't get in your tractors or anything else. So I got feeders in, just last week. So they've just been kind of late and just starting to get pictures rolling. And you see, like normally if I had those feeders here early, this whole cornfield, a good 5 acres of this would be wiped out because they hit your feeder, then they go out and eat in their normal fields. But I started noticing, like last year and this year, if I took the feeders out or I didn't put them in there, it just saved those fields. And I never really cared in the past. It was like, okay, I'm gonna get this corn out of here. That's fine. Let them eat that right now. And then I'll go and rototill that and I'll put that in a green field. And that would work. That'd work okay too. But this field isn't that big. It's only like 4 or 5 acres. So if they eat an acre or two out of here, that doesn't leave me with very much for the rest of the season in here. So my strategy on this deer is I think that he is a corn hog whenever, and most deer are. I mean, even early season, they'll be flocking to the green fields, like the clovers and the amazing grains, and sometimes even that Perfect 10. But if you cut corn, no matter what time it is, if I mow some of this down, that always seems to almost trump everything. But I'm gonna give them 2 things this year. I'm gonna do a green field right here where we're sitting on the road, and maybe back into this bay a little bit. But my strategy is because the way that this sets up, we'll show you, put a map up on the screen. there's a giant chunk of timber that he lives in, and there's other timbers around, but that's where he mostly focuses on. Now that he's 6, we've been watching him every year. We kind of know what he does. He likes this spot right here. But he also goes to the food plot we have on the west side of this timber and on the south side of it and the east side of it. He goes to all of those. So what I'm doing this year is I'm leaving and put the feeder back where we had it last year, where it was corn, where we were going to target him last year. But it doesn't matter to me right now where he's going. Let's keep him over by feeder. Let's focus on the bean field, because that's harder for me to hunt because I can't get a blind in the bean field like you can in corn and hide yourself and get every wind option that you have. You can hunt it when you have corn because you can get a blind in the corn. And then the other ones will be perfect 10 and an alfalfa and another perfect 10. But so around this whole thing, he can go to any of those food plots. But I think that early, I want to shoot him in the first 10 days, or get a shot at him anyway. I think I pull feeders out every place, 2 weeks before the season, and then maybe a week before the season, cut this bay of corn right here, and I think that will start, boom, it'll focus those deer right here. But if I didn't do that, if I put the feeder here, he'd still be here, but I'd be sitting, my corn would be 2 acres back there. And if it's a south wind of any kind, which this way is north here, any kind of south wind, I'd have to have the blind in the corn. And if they eat it out 200 yards past this point here, I mean, they come out and they might eat right here if I put this in a green field, and they could be out of range. So I want to keep all this corn as much as possible, get those deer on a different field, get them locked in a different field, which kind of seems, odd that you'd want to focus your deer on a different field. But I'm pretty sure, about positive, that when I pull the supplemental feed out of here, there's still plenty of food everywhere. They'll never go anywhere. The feeders are not to hunt deer over. I want to make that perfectly clear. That's just a supplemental feed to make sure they're healthy. I can keep ticks off them. I can keep them alive. Like last year, these bucks wouldn't even be here if we weren't supplemental feeding last year without the EHD. We had like 0 EHD on this farm, what everybody around us did, because we fed all summer. And like I basically have said many times before, so I won't go into it, but the Analogics pellets are basically have a form of the EHD vaccine, so there's no chemicals, so it's all natural. You can feed it to them without with it being legal, but it's basically an EHD vaccine built within it. So I had those feeders going very early last year because it started out really dry, and I knew that would be the case, and that's why half of these deer are even alive. So that's the reason that we use feeders, and to take some inventory and stuff over the summer. But as you can see, there's tons of food here that we don't need feeders. So like I said, it's kind of, it doesn't seem right that we're moving deer to the other side, but they're going to come here when we pull those feeders, and that's how we're going to get a shot at Crown Royal in those first 10 days. Okay, so I'm standing right now, it's just 5 yards from the cornfield there. And if you look around here, we're looking for a place for a tree stand, and it's all just small trees along this whole edge. But there's one big tree back here, a big oak right here, that we put the stand in several years ago. And now, even though this is a great spot, it gets to be too thick in here for when they come up through here, they surprise you and they get here too fast. Then by the time they get past you here, or if they don't come right out of here, they come in from the side over there, it was too far from this stand. So like my buddy Brad True hunted this several times, and just from hunting here over the years, unfortunately, they all come from the east. Nothing comes up from this west side, or at least 99.9% of the deer over the years that we've been hunting here will come up right down this trail here, some trails over the side, or we have a pond that's way over east over here that they'll start at that pond and work their way around that edge and come out to that field. So when Brad was hunting here 2 years ago, he felt like they were always out of the loop. Like by the time they got out feeding out there, it was too far of a shot, too blocked, only a little bit of a hole there. So what we're going to do this year is, like we said, we want to have that green field going that greens to grain, but I don't want to do it out there where we normally would, where we cut the corn down and put it out there. What I'm going to do is I look at this nice little bay here. I'm going to bring my veil in here with the saw and the mulcher. I'm going to cut all this lower stuff down, and I'm going to maybe just leave one tree out in front because they always scrape around this big tree right here. But I'm going to open a lot of that up over there so I can still see out into that field. And instead of starting my green field out where the edge of that corn was, I'm going to start a green field back in here in this bay, and then continue it. I'm going to make it just to the edge of the standing corn right now, And so when we start cutting corn, you know, they'll start right here and go out there, and even we don't even have to cut it. We've cut just a very little, even within shooting range of this stand here. So that's the plan, is to get this all cleared out, get a green plot in here. Hopefully they'll start right in this little bay right here before they go out to the grains, and have them nice and close. And I'm gonna get a water trough in here. So I like to take all this out and like right in front under the couple trees that I leave, put a water trough in there, and something that where they want to come out and hit that water before they go out, or vice versa from back in. But that's gonna be my plan for Crown Royal, is to get something green that they're attracted to, the water, and then cutting some of that corn out there, having that green to grain transition right in front of the stand. So we're gonna transform this whole thing right here. You know, I don't know what it is about that pond even that attracts the deer so much. But I thought about taking water samples out of it and just seeing if there was something that was, or what was in that water compared to anything else, because we put cameras on this pond right here, and it's probably a combination of things. It's probably that it stays shady enough in there around all these trees that it doesn't get a bunch of weeds and algae and stuff in there. And I'm not even sure if they mind that so much. But it's so secluded, and it's super shallow. I mean, the whole thing, and I don't know how it stays water in there, no matter how dry it is or how much of a drought you have. That thing always stays about that same depth, and you can see deer out there. There's spar out there, and fight out in there, and there's deer in there constantly, and it only stays about a foot deep, and it never dries up. Like if we have any other pond around here that's only a foot deep, 12 inches deep, like last year, it would have been totally dry. It would have been dried up. Not this one, but this is where even Crown Royal, you get tons of pictures of them in here, tons of them during daylight. And so if it just gets to that point where, hey, it's just a bunch of west winds and northwest winds, this is perfect, because we have this pond here, and it goes up a little, like the dam on the backside, and then it goes straight downhill. And we had a food plot down there, but we took it out because it was getting close to the edge, you know, not on our fence line, but close to our fence line. So we're like, let's not even do that. There's no sense in trying to direct deer towards a neighbor's fence line. Let's just focus them on the middle. So now we have an entrance into that field that you can go way on the north end, the north boundary line, or from the south and going up the east boundary line over there. So we can, in the mornings, we could take, you know, an electric Ranger or an e-bike, Baku, and come in from way down there and come up the edge, get into that food plot and walk right up the hill. And we'll see if we can find, I don't know that there is, but we'll see if we can find a tree on the east side of this pond, because it is that big berm and then drops straight off. So if you can get up high enough in a tree on the backside with a west wind, it goes right over the top, and it's all cedars back there. And you found over the years, if you ever have a stand in a cedar where there's cedars behind you, deer come out right underneath us, even with the wind going that way, because I think it just diffuses your scent so much. It gets caught up in all that thick cedar boughs, and there's no openings through it. It's just so thick that the scent doesn't break through. So if we have a bunch of west winds, we could hunt like this in the morning, assuming that all those deer, it's probably 500 yards over to where we just were, where we're gonna set up that stand. You know, assuming that all those deer are gonna be in that food plot, that we can come around the east edge here without disturbing that at all, not even getting anywhere near that, popping into the stand in the morning and having them come right back down here. Because I didn't hunt it 2 years ago, but when Donnie and Brad were, they said a lot of deer, they could see this little opening here, they'd come out of this pond, and they would catch them in this grass, and they'd lose them in the woods, and all of a sudden, boom, they pop out like right where we were. And so a lot of deer will move back and forth from this pond over to where we just were in that little bay, and vice versa. So we'll get a camera up on this pond right now just to make sure that they're doing it. But every year, if you have a buck on this farm, they're going to be in this pond. So let's get a Tacticam on that right now, and we'll look for a tree over there too. There's that post down there. Maybe grab a couple of chunks of wood to put on the sides of it so it'll hold it in there better. I started putting out a 4x4 post, but since this one already has a T-post in there, fence post, I'll just use that one. All right, well, I just got some brand new Tacticam Reveal 3.0s, and I just started putting them up yesterday, and I'm telling you, they made some big improvements to this. And that's the nice thing about going with like basically the industry leader. They've got, you know, the resources to keep let's keep advancing. Let's keep making things better and better and better. As I'm standing here, I see a couple of deer right there. You can see that they like this pond. They like, see there's like 2 does up there. If you step out just a little bit to your right, you'll see them up in there. Okay, so this, the 3.0, just go walk through some of the advantages of this. Number one, the first thing that you'll see is the picture quality. I mean, give him credit for that because it used to cost you before to get HD pictures. There's hardly any need for that. You'll see right away that the picture quality is unreal on these new ones. Another thing is, like it's got a slot for an SD card, but you don't need to put one in there. It has internal memory. You can put it in there if you want to just, to pop a card out and take your pictures back someplace, but you don't need to. Like I don't have one in here right now, and no slot for a SIM card. And so when you put this up, the camera will just read, is it AT&T, Verizon, what carrier gets your strongest signal, and it'll automatically put you on that signal. No difference in cost to you. It's the same exact price it always has been, but you don't have to choose because it'll automatically connect to the one that has the best service. And then you'll see in the app, a lot of different things in the app that are making it so much easier and cleaner and nicer and more options all the time. And we've been talking about, options even for the future. But for right now, you'll see the big difference in picture quality. I really like the fact, like I said, you just put it out and it'll connect to whatever you want it to. So on this one, I'm gonna get this. If I can get it on this. I think we can probably just, I don't know, maybe just put it kind of facing this way, maybe. I think it seems like most of them come from that, it's a shallower slope over there, not so much from that side. But I'll have to get a better post in here. But we should start getting pictures on this thing right away, because like I said, there's deer all around it, especially this hot weather. I'm sure they're in this pond every day. I'm sure by the time we leave, there'll be deer in here. More deer up there. All right, well, I just got the camera set up on this pond, and just looking at it, it's just the perfect setup. You look at it, it's a no-brainer. Look at these cedars on that side over there. It's a whole cedar ridge that drops down. These are like telephone poles, they're giant. We'll be able to get stands anywhere in these big cedars here with a west wind going over the top. That whole thing is cedars back there, and I know from past experience, it doesn't matter. You can hunt that on a west wind. Deer come up right underneath you on that. One thing is they're coming up from downhill, you'll be way above them. But two, just how much those cedars just diffuse your scent. And especially if you have any kind of a high pressure, like 30 and above, man, it's just gonna float right up. So that's gonna be the money spot. And so for this deer, normally we only hunt evenings, early and late season. But on this deer, we're gonna have to play him a little bit different. You're probably gonna have to stay on him morning and night, even those first 10 days of the season, because he's gonna break up. About guaranteed he's gonna start breaking off those inside points. He always has since he was 2 years old. He breaks everything up, so he's probably really aggressive. And he's not super massive, so all those points break off easy. So I don't know if something with his rack or something just his makeup, if they're brittle or what, but I think most of it is he doesn't have super big mass. At least he never has, so he likely won't. But this is a deal where in the evenings, you hunt where we just were, that cornfield, and get all that set up. But in the mornings, we can sneak in on the kinetic rangers and stuff and get right behind here without disturbing anything there. Either you come in, we'll probably likely come in from the southeast down here. We can get right along our fence line, come up into the food plot that's back in here that I'm not planting anymore, pop right up to this with all those deer over there with the west wind, get in here in the dark, and I about guarantee it, especially when you get hotter days like this, they'll come right from that food source. Even though there's water there, they'll be hitting that water and stuff too. I think they like to bed on the backside and all these cedars in here. We found a lot of sheds in there this year too, that they'll come hit this pond before they go back, and you'll be sitting right in one of these trees right here. Right now, we're just gonna go walk over there, pick out a tree, the exact one, because probably any of these. We'll just find which one is the straightest and which one looks the best, and get this stand up, get that all grubbed out, get this thing rolling. The trap will be set. We just have to see if he bites on October 1st, or the 8th, or the 10th, or the 11th, or whenever that might be. But let's go over and pick out a tree.